Rev up your engines!
Well, Tesla is under investigation in California because of two things. One, the autopilot safety system, where these things are just braking on their own, can cause wrecks. And two, over the marketing. And I agree entirely, especially the second point, marketing. Tesla's full self-driving. It isn't. How are they even allowed to sell something and call it Tesla full self-driving? It is not. It is not autonomous driving, right? But they sell it under that name. Now, the California Attorney General is looking into suing them and saying, well, you're going to give people money back if they're not happy, and you're going to have to fix it so these things don't start breaking for no reason. So a lot of people don't understand is most of these computer systems have a fail-safe in them that if the computer's confused and doesn't know what to do, it stops the car. They see that as a safety reason, right? So now they've had problems in California where they're trying these ones that actually do drive themselves, and they're stopping at an intersection when a fire truck or an ambulance comes, and they cause problems, they cause blockage, and the police and the fire department are saying, we don't want these things in our city because this full self-driving is causing problems. They're computers. They're not people. They get confused, and their confusion main state is if you're confused, stop moving, which is not a good thing if you're going 60 miles an hour. It decides to stop moving, right? And of course, the other part, hey, it's just a flat-out lie. It's not full self-driving. How they're even able to use that name is beyond me. Emmanuel Ramirez says, 2018 Mustang convertible with 85,000 miles. What are your thoughts? Well, one, make sure a mechanic checks it out. You can't trust. Kids drive the heck out of those things. Can destroy them. But if it's in good shape, it's a convertible. Convertibles hold their value. People just like rag tops. It's weird. They don't sell that many of them. The people that buy them like them, so they'll always pay extra money. So if it's in good shape, even if you get tired of it, you can still get some decent money for the thing. But you want to get it checked out by a mechanic. If you're not a speed demon, get a V6. People rag them less. The V8s, the problem is people buy them to drive fast. They do, and you buy it used, and you buy a worn-out car. So make sure you got a mechanic to check it out. DeRoach22 says, what's the best value for a used minivan? Please help. All right, well, the best minivans out there, bar none, are the Toyota Siennas. But you said value. And the problem is they're so expensive. My son was going to get one in Massachusetts. He was going to get a used one. He ended up buying a new one. He said, the used ones are almost the same price as the new ones. They're not giving them away. They're expensive. Now, if you want a cheap minivan, you can always get Ford minivans pretty cheap because they don't hold up quite as well, but you can get them dirt cheap. You might have to spend 30 grand for a used Sienna van. You could probably buy used Ford vans all day long for like $5,000 to $10,000. They're not as well made. They won't last as long, but they are a heck of a lot cheaper. You said value, so you got to play with that. Brian Rocheski says, this guy is the worst, but his stupidity is amazing entertainment. Okay, all right, buddy. I was writing my PhD before I got married at the University of Illinois. I happen to like working for myself, so I ran my own business all those years. You certainly don't comprehend what the word stupid means. I combine knowledge with entertainment. And you might be confused thinking that entertainment isn't knowledge. Well, let me tell you, you can merge the two of them together. It's not that easy to do. Very few people can do that, but I've been pulling it off for quite some time. Let me tell you, if I ever met you in person and we would see who the smarter person was, I guarantee you, you'd be on the bottom rung. Jacob William said, 2006 Ford Ranger, keep or sell? Well, that depends on so many variables. You know, it really does. Let's say you live up north. Look under it. If it's rusting away, get rid of it. It's going to fall apart. It's a rust bucket. They're notorious for rusting. If it's not rusting, doesn't burn oil, still runs, depends on the mileage, too. Generally, they pretty much fall apart when they get 150, 160, 180, 100,000 miles. They generally fall apart. So you're going to think, well, I'll get rid of the thing. They're lower mileage. They don't have rust. They're decent vehicles, you know. They're not going to last as long as a Toyota Tacoma by any stretch of the imagination. Not one iota will they last as long as a Toyota Tacoma. You already own it. Better the devil you know than the devil you don't, if it's not rusting out. If it's rusting out, all bets are off. Get rid of it. Honda Fan 123 says, Scotty, my 2011 Honda Accord brake pedals feel soft. Doesn't go all the way to the floor. It feels soft. Is this normal? Well, it often is normal on those Accords. That thing's what? It's 13 years old now. The new models are out. So, that is relatively normal. Now, here's the thing. It's it's not leaking anywhere, and if it stops, that's relatively normal. But watch this. When you're driving, if it gets soft, but you're at a stop sign, it sinks all the way to the floor, the car starts moving, you got to pump it, then you want to fix it immediately, because that means it's on its way out. But I've seen those Accords with soft brake pedals, and 6-7 years later, they're still soft, and they're still stopping good enough going down the road. Don't spend money unnecessarily, but don't put yourself in danger. It starts sinking, and you start losing fluid. You want to fix it sooner than later. Jamal Shaw says, Scotty, 5th generation 4Runner or 2024 Land Cruiser? Well, they're sort of different vehicles, right? But I would go for the 5th generation 4Runners. The 4Runners generally can last forever. They're all still made in Japan, at least when I'm recording it now. All the ones so far have all been made in Japan. The Land Cruisers, good vehicles, but they are tremendous gas hogs. Doesn't matter what kind of engine you put in them. They're big, heavy. I had a friend in Houston who had one. I said, what kind of gas mods do you get? He said, Scotty, I'm afraid to know. I never even figured it out. I just keep filling it up every 3 or 4 days because it goes through gas like no tomorrow. So you're going to get better gas mods with the 4Runner. You know, they're relatively similar vehicles, but I'd pick the 4Runner out of those two. Trucks in Moore, New Jersey says, Scotty, is a 2020 Jeep Compass 4x4, 57,000 miles reliable? Or should I get a 2023 Nissan Versa manual transmission instead? The Jeeps aren't reliable as they age. Now, it's only got 57,000 miles. The problem with the Nissans are their automatic transmissions stink. Well, the trucks don't because they're rear-wheel drive. But all their cars that are front-wheel drive, those transmissions are horrible. You're getting a manual transmission, not an automatic front-wheel drive. Usually, they're pretty decent vehicles. And, of course, they're a lot faster with the manual, you know. Less things to break down. That's what I'd do if I were you. I mean, if I were you, I'd get a Toyota Corolla or a RAV4 or something instead of the Nissan, but if that's your choice, go for the Nissan. Saul Goodman says, which brand is worst to fix? Well, it's always the high-end brands, okay? Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Mercedes, BMW, right? And the more money they cost, generally the bigger pain they are to fix because they don't care. I was reading one the other day. A guy had one of these exotic Lamborghinis, right? He got an oil change in the car, and I'm not making this up. The oil change cost him $30,000. And they say, well, you see, there's various oils you have to change, and they're very hard to access. You got to take the whole bottom of the car off, yada, yada, yada. But really, 30 grand for an oil change, right? That shows you that they are the absolute worst cars to work on. They make them impossible to work on. And, I mean, that's just the way it goes with exotic cars. Pyrofan says, I bought a 2003 Dodge Stratus. After I changed the ignition, I replaced the alternator, battery still don't work. Could it be the ECM? Well, it could, but here's the thing. You changed the ignition. Did you unplug the battery when you did that? If you didn't, you probably shorted something out. Either blew a fuse or you shorted wiring out, and you could have shorted out the ECM too. Anytime you work on an electrical system of a car, and even I've screwed up and didn't do it, and things go wrong. I make a point of doing it now. But you have live battery power, positive, positive, negative, negative. While you're working, if you short positive to ground, you can destroy computer modules, pop fuses, melt wiring. All kinds of damage can be done. So check your work closely. See if fuses are blown. Check all the wiring. They look like there's melted plastic on it. So pray it's that and not the ECM. That's why when you work on electrical systems in a car, you can disconnect the battery. You only have to take one terminal. It doesn't matter which one. As long as you disconnect either one and put it to the side so it doesn't touch anything, there's no power flowing through the system, and you can't short things out by inadvertently crossing wires or having a tool that hits a wire and then crack. Goes to the computer. Carolyn says, Scotty, got a Toyota Tacoma 99. A lot of white exhaust smoke burst out. Smells like water. No coolant smell. What could it be? A freak thing. PCV valve. Tested for leaks, and the blue fluid stayed blue. All right, well, did it sit for a long time, or did it rain like bananas? If your car sits for a long time, condensation builds up inside the metal. If it rains a lot, rainwater can get in the pipe. Then when you start it, the exhaust gets hot, the water turns to steam, and out it comes. Now, realize that when your car burns gasoline, that's just nothing but hydrogen and carbon in various formulations, you burn it in Earth's atmosphere, one of the byproducts is water vapor. You're always going to get a little water vapor coming out of your exhaust. And if, let's say, it sat for a while, there might have been a reasonable amount stored in there. And when you started, so if it doesn't happen again, that's what happened, especially if it was after a rainstorm or something. Or on the off chance that you have friends who have rather devious senses of humor, they could have gotten a hose and squirted it up your tailpipe. And I have seen people do that. on both cars and motorcycles. They thought, let's fill it up with water and he'll see what happens in the morning. He'll freak out, right? And most people will freak out when they see water fumes coming out of the back of their tailpipe. So you got some devious friends. Maybe put a security camera and watch your car at night. See what they're doing. Exposerful says, Scotty, when were you back in Rhode Island? Okay, I'll be back in Rhode Island October and November. I spend time with the grandkids there. I spend time with the grandkids in Tennessee. I go back and forth, back and forth. Now I'm in Tennessee. But in October and November, I'll be back to help people out in Rhode Island and the surrounding states. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.